Hey YouTube, it's Charlie from Reader Turned Writer. Today I'm talking about the homeschool read-alouds I read with my children in 2020 and the homeschool read-alouds that I want to read next year in 2021. If you are new here, welcome to my channel, and if not, welcome back. I'm so happy you are here on my bookish channel. Thank you so much. I love all things reading, books, and writing. Thank you so much for being here. If any of that interests you, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and to hit that thumbs up button if you like this video. So I'm just going to jump into the books. I'm just going to start with the books that I read this year in order. So the first book that I finished with my kids was the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. So the first book of the Harry Potter series. And my kids are currently 6, 4, and 2. My youngest turned 2 in August, and she doesn't really have an interest in the read aloud books yet, of course, because she's 2. My 4-year-old turned 4 in June, and she has more of an interest, though sometimes she will wander off. It kind of depends on the book and the day. And then my 6-year-old, she turned 6 in August, and she is very interested in the read alouds. So she's the one that I do it for the most right now. And we got the illustrated first and second book for Christmas from my brother and his wife, and we were really excited because they're gorgeous, and I decided to read them with Ashton. She was a little bit young. I'm sure there was stuff that she didn't really understand, but for the most part she actually really enjoyed it. The whole twist at the end with Snape versus Quirrell, that like totally blew her mind. It was so funny. I loved being able to experience that with her as a mother and as a Harry Potter fan, so that was really fun. My 4-year-old at the time was 3, and she liked the beginning, but she didn't really pay attention to most of the book. It took us about 3 months to get through it. I'll actually link, because my daughter does reviews on Goodreads after she's done reading them, and I'll link her account down below because they are absolutely hilarious. I always just have to laugh at what she pulls out of the book and like her favorite part and stuff. So yeah, I'll link that down below if you're interested in following her reviews. She loves to rate them on Goodreads with the stars, and then she sits and tells me what she wants to say about the book, and I type it out for her. So yeah, but it was a fun one to read with them. It took us about 3 months. Like I said, it was a little bit harder for us to get through, but I'm glad that we read it. I definitely won't be reading the rest of the series with them until they are a little bit older, because I think like even this book had a few parts that were a little bit scary, and like we haven't showed the kids the books because we're a little bit worried, although we might try it. We tried Narnia this year, and I'll talk about that later, and we were a little bit worried because Narnia has some darker, scarier parts, but they did totally fine with it. So we might try Harry Potter and just see if they like it. They've also been really into audiobooks, so we might listen to the first one with them, and they're a year older now, so they might even like it even more. Right now we're listening to Wizard of Oz stories, so yeah. Anyway, so Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone was our first one, and it took 3 months. So then in April, so we did January, February, March for Harry Potter. So then in April we read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory together, and they loved this one. Ashton wanted to read it again as soon as we finished it, and as we were reading, I let them watch, like when we would get to the different Oompa Loompa parts, I would let them watch just the clip of that on YouTube, which they thought was really fun. And then afterwards we watched both of the movies, and they enjoyed both of them, although they weren't actually as interested in the movies as they were the books. Maybe they just need to be a little bit older. I don't know. The movies and the book, they're kind of weird, but Ashton really liked this book. It might have been one of her favorites of the year. And Parker was actually really interested in it as well, and I think it's because of the little clips that I was able to show them that related back to the book. Then the next few months we read the Spiderwick Chronicle books, and these actually they did not love as much, and I don't know if I've ever read the whole series. I remember reading the first one at least, the field guide. And I remember, I think I owned it when I was a child or something, and there's 5 books, but it's basically, they're out of order. It feels like it should be one book. Like it would be shorter than Harry Potter if they combine it into one book, and it definitely is broken up into like a 5-act structure type thing, so yeah. But the short books did give us like a feeling of like progression, and so it was really easy to get through them. Like we read 3 books one month and then 2 books the next month, and we're able to kind of get through them quickly, which was nice after Harry Potter taking so long. But they just weren't as interested in them. It also felt like a lot of the tension came from the relationship between the boy and his dad, who isn't there, who isn't around anymore. And I don't think that Ashton, even at 5, really understood everything that was going on there and kind of the undercurrents of that. And so I think that this would be better for an older child if it kept their interest. I'm not sure. I didn't enjoy them as much. Like, I didn't enjoy reading them personally as an adult. They were kind of boring to me. I don't know, some read-alouds are super fun as an adult, and some for me are just meh, and this was just one of those meh ones, and it was also meh for my kids, so then I was like, it wasn't the best read-aloud for us. During the summer, we didn't read aloud as much, but we did read The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum, and this took us forever, even though it's a little bit shorter, because we just didn't read as much. The kids were outside a ton, and so we also kind of took a break from like homeschool type stuff in the summer, and so yeah, we still read to our kids every day. We just read picture books to them at bedtime to make sure that we're reading to them every day. And so my read aloud happens in the morning during like our homeschool time, and it just didn't happen as much in the summer. And I was totally okay with my kids playing outside. Like, now I wish it was warm and it's cold. But The Wizard of Oz was a really fun one for them. It was partially fun because our local live theater was doing a junior version of The Wizard of Oz, so like a condensed version of The Wizard of Oz musical. And my sister-in-law is 17, and she was Dorothy. She landed the part of Dorothy. And so both of my girls got to go to it, and they loved it. And they also got to watch the movie, and they loved that. And they just really loved this. And then we listened to it, and they really enjoyed listening to it as well. We're listening to the second one. They don't like it as much. I can see why the first one's so famous and the second one's not. I'm not really liking it. I'm not even sure we're going to finish the audiobook, honestly. But the first one, I do like the first one. I don't love The Wizard of Oz, but I do think it's cute, and my kids really liked it, so it was fun. So we finished that in September, and then in October we actually were trying to read Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator because they loved Charlie and the Chocolate Factory so much, and we just couldn't get through it. I was bored, the kids were bored. I was like, do you want to stop reading this and read something else? And they were like, yes, please. So then I pulled out The Search. In the fall we watched, summer and fall, we watched the whole TV series with them, the Avatar: The Last Airbender. We started Korra, but my husband and I don't love Korra quite as much, so we haven't gotten as far in it. But we love Avatar, the first original 3-book series, and the kids loved it. Riley loved it. Everyone loved it. So we read this, and Riley actually liked this more too, and I think it's because it's a graphic novel format, so it has a lot more pictures. So Riley was around for a lot more of it, and Parker, my 4-year-old, this was her favorite book. She would open it when we weren't reading it and just sit and look at it for hours. And Ashton really liked it. I actually really like this one. I read a few others that are okay, but this one's my favorite. It's they go and look for Zuko's mom, and you get closure on what happened to Zuko's mom, because you know how that's like a thing in the TV series. And I think the story is really well done. I love the characters still, and this is my favorite graphic novel of the Avatar: The Last Airbender ones that I've read, and the kids really loved it. So it's a good one if you like Avatar. And I think that watching Avatar with kids is great, because Avatar: The Last Airbender is a really fun, clean show that adults really like. There's a lot of stuff for adults in it, but the kids love it too, and it's really good for all ages. We read that in October, and in October, for her birthday, we got my daughter The Princess in Black and Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle. And Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle is one that I have heard a lot about, but I never actually read it as a child. I loved reading it aloud to the kids. It was a funny book, and Ashton absolutely loved it. She thought it was so funny, and her review of it is hilarious again. My 4-year-old did not like it as much. She hardly ever listened to, like, she hardly ever stayed to listen. She would go off and kind of play or look at other books while we were reading it. So it wasn't as much a fan for her, but Ashton really liked it, and I think that makes sense to me, because it does seem like a book for slightly older kids to me. But it is funny and cute, and as an adult, I enjoyed reading it as well, that's always a bonus as a read aloud. And then The Princess in Black, our other read in November, because they're both pretty short. Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle took us a few weeks to get through, and The Princess in Black took us 2 days. But The Princess in Black has illustrations in it, and it's by Shannon Hell, and it is adorable. We actually last year or the year before, I accidentally bought the last one in the series that they had out at the time, so we had read that one together, and it was really cute. So I wanted to read the first one, and now I'm way excited to read the whole series, because my 4-year-old loved this book. She loved it so much. She loves princesses and superheroes, and this is a combination of them. And so, of course, she loved it. Ashton really liked it too, and Riley actually sat with us almost the whole time we were reading it and liked it as well. I don't know how much she gets out of it, but she sat there on my lap and watched the pictures and listened as I read it and stuff almost the entire time. So, the entire time the first time, and then the second time, the second day that we were reading it, she got down halfway through. But it is a really quick read. It's definitely one that I think Ashton could read by herself if she decided she wanted to. But I liked reading it aloud to them because then Parker was so interested. So I'm really excited to get the rest of the series and read it with Parker this next year. I think that I can fit it in between the other books that I have planned because, like I said, they're so short. It's almost like reading a picture book. So definitely, I highly recommend this for... I think boys would like it too. Like, there's a boy in here, even though it's a princess book. There is a boy in here that's a goat herd, taker care of, I don't know the word for that. He takes care of goats, and he turns into like a superhero at the end of the book too. So he like has a part in this as well. And so I don't think it's only a book for girls. I think that it's a really funny, cute book for any kid. And then the final book that we read in December was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So what happened was my husband, because I would never have thought to read this to them quite yet because they're still pretty little. I obviously want to read all of them with them. My mom did that with me and I really loved it. My husband was listening to one of the songs from the Prince Caspian, and he showed the song to my daughters on YouTube, and it had like some stuff from the movie, like they'd put pictures from the movie into it, and Parker just fell in love with it. So then she was begging us to watch it, and we were like, I mean, we could try it, you know. We figured the worst case scenario, well, we were like, well, they might get scared or they might get bored. So we watched it, and Riley, our 2-year-old, had zero interest in it. She like literally did not care at all, we thought. But Parker and Ashton just loved it. They thought it was the coolest movie ever. They were a little bit scared, but they didn't get super scared. They don't really scare easily or get nightmares from stuff very much, and so I thought that they would probably be okay. I do try and be careful, but they were okay. They were fine with it. The scariest part, I think, is like, or the darkest part, I guess, is when Aslan gets tied up and killed and stuff, because that part's pretty dark, but they were okay with it, and we sat and watched it with them and everything. So then they wanted to watch it again, and we got to the part where Tumnus is coming, and you hear the footsteps, but you don't know who it is, and they're trying to make it kind of scary. And I was like, oh no, who's coming? And Riley goes, it's Mr. Tum-Mum, and she really liked Mr. Tumnus. So now we're reading the book because they liked the movie so much. We did that in November, watched that in November, so then in December I read it to them, and I thought it was a pretty fitting one for November because of the scenes with for December because of the scenes with Santa and stuff, and they really liked the book. One of the things about it was that the chapters felt short enough that I could read one chapter at a time, and it didn't feel too long. Sometimes books, I feel like I have to read it, break it up into more than just the chapters, like break the chapters in half because they're so long. That's kind of like Harry Potter sometimes was that way. But the Chronicles of Narnia has shorter chapters, and it only has 17 chapters, so it's actually a shorter book. Well, not Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So that's the only one we've read with them so far, but I'm excited to read more with them. The one that I remember most from my childhood is The Horse and His Boy, and I'm excited to read that with them. But I do want to read more with them, but I might wait. I haven't decided yet how I'm going to do that, because we didn't decide to read this until after I'd already figured out the books that I want to read next year, so I might read them, then fit them in the next year. There's so many good books to read to kids, it's so hard to pick. So really quickly, I'm just going to read off a list here on my computer that I have of the books that I have in my bullet journal that I wanted to get to or just had on my list to watch but didn't actually read. And just really quickly for reference, I had planned 12 books to read with my kids for the year, and I actually only read 2 of those. So even though I did end up reading 12 books with them, they were not the books that I had planned, mostly. So yeah, we'll see how next year goes. So the books I didn't get to but that I had on my list was How to Train Your Dragon, James and the Giant Peach, 101 Dalmatians, Mary Poppins, The BFG, the entire Little House series. I think I've read a couple books with them, but Ashton was pretty young and I want to reread those too anyways, so The Wind in the Willows, Ada Lace, Lulu and the Brontosaurus, Mr. Popper's Penguins, and The Girl Who Saved Christmas. So now I'm going to move on to the books that I want to read in 2021, and I'm just going to list off the 12 that I have planned for each month. And I'm just going to list off the books that I have planned for each month. So the first book I want to read, The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, and I might look and see if our library has any that have like illustrations in it, because I think that there are some that have illustrations. This one doesn't, because it's like a compact little tiny like leather bound one that I really like this edition, but it might not be the best to read with kids. It also has tiny words, so it might feel a little daunting, but I love the maps. Yeah, I think that they'll really enjoy The Hobbit, because we actually watched The Hobbit the cartoon. That's like Japanese American made. I don't even know when it was made. I remember watching it as a kid, and so we watched it with them this year, and they loved it. Parker loved it. Parker likes kind of like weird stuff. Like, she'll probably be really into anime, because anime just has kind of like, sometimes it's just kind of weird, you know, but Parker loves that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm excited to read The Hobbit with them. They know the story really well. They know the characters, so I think that they'll really love the book, even though it does have more of a classic style. It is a kid's book, so I'm excited. I don't know, we'll see if they like it. Then in February, I want to read Pippi Longstocking with them. This is actually one that I've never read, so I'm excited to read it. Like, obviously I've heard of Pippi Longstocking, I know who she is, but I've just never read it. So we'll see if I like it and if the girls like it. In March, when it's starting to warm up, I want to read The Secret Garden with them, and this is an illustrated copy that I got a while ago, and I really love the illustrations in it. My 6-year-old has actually spent hours and hours and hours reading this book, like pretending to read it and looking at the pictures and making up stories for it and stuff. And I recently read The Secret Garden just a few years ago and really liked it, and I think it's one that Ashton will like. I think because it has illustrations, Parker might stick around more too, but we'll see. In April, I want to read The Prairie Thief by Melissa Wiley. I don't know a lot about this other than that I've heard that it's kind of similar to, you know, Little House on the Prairie type vibes, but it's a little bit easier to get through because I think it's shorter. And I don't know, I've never read it, but it was on a list of books that I wanted to read with the kids, so I decided to try it. In May, I want to read A Little Princess by Frances Hodgins Burnett, and I am really excited to read it with the girls because I love A Little Princess. And maybe if I read the book with them, then they would be willing to watch the movie. The movie, I'm worried, wouldn't keep their interest because there's a lot of talking, but Ashton's getting old enough that she might actually like it. I don't know, we'll see. In June, and I am hoping to read more with the girls in the summer because I do have a lot of books that I want to get through with them. So in June, I want to read The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame, and this is another illustrated edition that I got. I got both of these off of Book Outlet, so they weren't super expensive, but they have really beautiful illustrations in them. And this is one that I also read a few years ago that I think that both Parker and Ashton are really going to like it. I think they'll be really interested in it. And then I wanted to read this one mostly for Ashton because I remember reading these books when I was in first grade, and she'll be getting into first grade next year. And this year, I guess, like at the start of the next school year. And this is Cam Jansen? I don't know. Now I can't remember what her name is for sure. But the first one is called The Mystery of the Stolen Diamonds, and I loved this series when I was little. I've always loved mystery books. I still love mystery books, and I would love it if I could introduce that love of mystery books to my kids. And Cam Jansen was like the first one that I remember reading. She has a photographic memory where she like can take a picture, so then people call her Cam, like camera. It's really silly, but I think Ashton will like it, and it might even be one that at that point she could read on her own the rest of them after I read the first one to her, so I might be able to get her interested in reading like some bigger books. Right now she's on about level 2, like easy reader books, and so she's still, but she practices every day, and so I think by that point she might be good enough to move on to some like mini chapter books, which is what the Cam Jansen books are. I also just wanted to share this book because I might read it with them. It's really short. It's called Mini Mysteries, and it was my mom's when she was a teenager, so it's like really old. But I remember reading this when I was younger and just absolutely loving these little mysteries. And since it's so short, I thought we might be able to squeeze it in with Cam Jansen and get like a mystery month. So in August, and I purposely put some of these smaller books in the summer so that we could get through them a little bit quicker. Kidnapped Kids is the one that I want to read in August by Tom Strasser, and this is one that I remember from my childhood as well. Their two parents, I think their two parents are lawyers, and they like work all the time and never have time for their family, so the two sons like kidnap them and take them to like their cabin or whatever so that they can't work and have to spend time as a family, but then like these bad guys come to the cabin and are like trying to kill them or capture them. I don't really remember, but it's a pretty fun book. I think Ashton's old enough now to enjoy it, and I don't know, we'll try it, and if they don't like it then I'll stop, but I think that they'll like it, and I am excited to be able to start sharing some of my favorite books from childhood with them. Then in September I want to read Because of Winn, Dixie by Kate DiCamillo, and this is obviously just a classic now. It's so fun. Because of the dog, I think Parker will like it, and it's not too long of a book, I don't think. And then they have the movie too. I think the movie's okay to show to kids. I don't remember now. I remember just tidbits of the movie, but I'll look into that, and if I think it's a good one to show them, then we'll try the movie too after we read it. In October, I want to read Where the Red Fern Grows by Wilson Rawls. This is another one that I think that they'll really like because of the dogs. They both really like animals, and Parker especially likes animals and dogs. So I think it'll be a really good one. It's not too long of a book to get through, I don't think. Then in November, the book that I'm most excited to share with them, because it was my absolute favorite as a child, and Parker loves princesses. And this is a Cinderella retelling, so I want to read Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine. And I think Ashton is, by the time I read this, Ashton will be over 7 years old, which I think is a great age to read this. I think I had just turned 8 when I read this for the first time, and I loved it. And I think Parker will like it because of the Cinderella retelling and the fairy tale aspect. So I'm really hoping that they enjoy it because it was my favorite as a child. And I'm so excited to read it with them. Okay, so then in December, I want to read The Vanderbeekers on 141st Street by Karina Yanglasser, something like that. I'll put it here so you can see her name without me slaughtering it. I read this last year. I think I read it in November, and December is the perfect time to read it because it takes place around Christmas and it revolves around Christmas and everything. And so that's why I wanted to read it in December with them, and I think that they will really like it. I think that they'll relate a lot with the kids and stuff in the book. So those are the books that I am going to plan on reading with them in the next year, but I might change which ones I read. I am really excited for most of these, so I think that I will end up reading the ones that I have planned for most of the month. Some of them I'm not sure, like maybe I'll change the Prairie Thief one if another book comes up that I really want to read to them or something, because that one I'm not super attached to because I didn't read it as a child or whatever. But I'm going to just read off my list. So I have the books that I listed before that I haven't read that I didn't get to listed in my bullet journal, but these are the other ones that I have on there. The Summer of the Monkeys, Little Dog Lost, The Heartwood Hotel, The Phantom Tollbooth, Homer Price, The Trumpet of the Swan, Begin, that's like growly books, The Bears of Hemlock Mountain, The Cricket in Times Square, A Bear Called Paddington, Poppy, and McBroom's Wonderful One-Acre Farm. So those are the books that I have on my list that I could choose one of those books instead of the ones that I showed you, but the ones I showed you are the ones that I most want to read to them in the 12 months. And I don't think we'll have a lot of extra time, but if we do, then I will be reading the Princess in Black series first, and then I could look into other books if we have extra time. Now, your turn. Let me know what you've read with your kids that they've loved, or what you're planning on reading or most want to read with your kids in the comments below, or what your favorite book was as a child. I would love to chat books with you, so don't forget to hit the comments section. That was awkward, but whatever. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet already, and to hit that thumbs up if you liked this video. Thank you so much for watching my video. I will see you in the next one.